Welcome to today's edition of Politics and Religion. I'm Jim Stiglman with Anthony Vandergrift. We're sitting in for Irvin Baxter, who is off. And Anthony, we've got a very interesting show today. We've got some things going on with Russia that we want to talk about, and we're going to tell why that's so important that we talk about Russia, because we want to see how her reaction is going to be to certain things, certain sanctions that may come her way, because the Bible prophesies that Russia will be involved in end-time events. We're going to talk about the latest breaking news from Gaza, things that happened overnight. And if we have time, we may even get a little bit into religious persecutions that are actually going on in other countries. But, you know, it's very important for us to realize that Russia is in Bible prophecy and that it is important to know what she's doing, because she'll be a vital element in the attack against Israel at the Battle of Armageddon, so we want to watch what she's doing. But before we get there, let's look at Gaza and some of the things that happened overnight and some of the new things that are transpiring today. Israel slammed Gaza with a barrage of airstrikes overnight, and at least 60 have died because of these airstrikes. And things that were bombed were TV headquarters, government offices, the home of one of their top leaders, the only power plant in the whole country. So you can imagine what kind of chaos that's creating. And this power plant, when it was bombed, basically an official said it's going to take about a year to fix. So you can imagine yourself sitting in your house for a year with no electricity. I mean, what would you do? No lights at night, no air conditioner in the summertime, no heat in the wintertime. Anthony, it could be very chaotic.
It's chaotic now for people to live a day without a cell phone if they forget to charge it overnight.
That's right, yeah. And so, you know, you can imagine with no electricity to charge that cell phone, how would you live? Now, I don't own a cell phone. People may ask you, why not? Well, my wife and I work at the same place and here at the ministry, and I decided that she would be about the only person I would call outside of my children. And so I could just use hers to call them. And she's right here. She could scream from her office and I'll come a running. And so, the point is that with this power plant down, now Israel is, being told by the Palestinians and those that are in Gaza, Hamas in Gaza, that, hey, you guys got to help us. You got to help us, supply us with electricity, supply us with coal or whatever, however their electricity works there. Supply us with the means to get our infrastructure back up. And so, you know, Benjamin Netanyahu, Anthony, had just, going on with this story, had just made a speech saying that it was going to be a prolonged campaign in Gaza. And basically another article I saw was titled, basically said, no end in sight. And so he's in it for the long haul. He wants to make sure that he takes care of everything that he set out to take care of. And so he makes this speech on national TV, and then all of a sudden the bombs drop, 60 are dead, many things were destroyed, and Hamas is still basically hanging on. You know, they're very, very determined to get what they want out of this situation. And so Hamas has said that it won't stop fighting until it wins international guarantees that the blockade of Gaza, which has been going on for 7 years, will be lifted. Israel, on the other hand, says that we're not going to leave Gaza until we take care of those dozens of Hamas military tunnels that are linking their country to ours, where they could secretly get in and attack us. So we still have the two sides, very, very different opinions of what needs to happen here. And you've got an article that's going to tell us a little more of what's going on, the updated death toll, the ramifications of this power plant, and different things that are going on with that.
Yeah, this is pretty much just going to fill in all the little details that you've just mentioned. Israel knocked out Gaza's only power plant and pounded dozens of other high-profile targets on Tuesday, while Egyptian mediators prepared a revised proposal for halting its war with Islamist militants in the enclave. Israel's Channel 2 TV said progress was being made on such a deal in Cairo, where a Palestinian delegation is expected later on Tuesday, although the station retracted an earlier report that a truce had already been provisionally agreed. Health officials said at least 84 Palestinians died in some of the heaviest bombardments from air, sea, and land since Israel's offensive began on July 8th. In response to rockets fired by Hamas and its militant allies. Local hospital officials said this brought the total number of Palestinian dead in the conflict to 1,164, most of them being civilians. And then on the other side of things, we have 53 soldiers from the Israeli side and 3 civilians who have been killed thus far. The Israeli assault intensified after the deaths of 10 troops in the Palestinian cross-border attacks on Monday, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warning of a long conflict ahead. But the military said it needed about a week to complete its main mission of destroying cross-border tunnels through which Hamas militants have infiltrated to attack Israelis. Thick black smoke rose from blazing fuel tanks at the power station that supplies up to 2/3 of Gaza's energy needs. The local energy authority said initial damage assessments suggested the plant could be out of action for a year. Electricity was cut to the city of Gaza and many other parts of the Hamas-dominated territory after what officials said was Israeli tank shelling of the tanks containing about 3 million cubic liters of diesel fuel. The power plant is finished, and this was said by the director of the power plant, Mohammed Al-Sharif. The Gaza City also reported that the damage to the station could halt many of the area's water pumps, and it urged residents to ration water consumption. Gazans who have had few hours of electricity a day since the conflict began now face months without power. Some parts of southern Gaza get power from the neighboring Egypt, but a lot of the electricity lines from Israel have been destroyed because of the war that's going on right now. So that's the update of the conflict. Not only does it affect the electricity, but it also ties into the water, and they've already had limited electricity since this conflict began, and now all the civilians, most of them, 2/3 of them, will be out of electricity for at least a few months. But they're saying, they're not going to be able to recover from this for a year because the plant was destroyed.
Yeah, and not only, let's hit the water thing. You can probably figure out a way to survive without electricity, a fire or whatever. But without water, go to the well, go to the river, whatever, the conveniences, it's war. And it's like a city under siege at this point now, if I could say that, because of these bombings. And so I actually had an article that said not only on top of the over 1,100 that were killed, 6,500 have been wounded. Mm-hmm. And so you see the numbers just keep mounting and mounting and mounting. And many of those are Palestinians. Many of them are Hamas. Right. And many of them, unfortunately, are civilians. So, if the civilian count keeps going up, then Israel is going to get whacked by the international community even more.
And they're already starting to try to do that now, and I understand with the civilian casualties going up as they are, but at the same time, when they are trying to present a proposal to create a ceasefire and to stop all of this that's going on, they haven't presented anything that has really favored Israel yet. I know Israel has accepted a few of them that Hamas has denied, but considering everything that's been proposed thus far, I know the latest talks by the UN, Benjamin Netanyahu, was very much against them because it didn't even consider the Israeli security aspect. And so I think the only way they're going to get Israel to stop, because Hamas seems not to stop unless they get everything that they want. So if they give that to Hamas, they also have to do some things for Israel, I think, because other than that, just like any other nation would do, just like everyone else has said, Israel's going to keep retaliating the same way they are.
Yes. And, our end game here should be for peace for both sides.
Right.
And I found an article a couple of days ago that said Hamas leader, no peace under Israeli occupation. Khalid Mishal is the leader that is quoted here. And basically he's calling it an occupation, which many Palestinians are. And he says when Israel practically commits itself to withdraw completely from the West Bank without any settlements, and if we have Jerusalem as our capital and the return of the refugees is there, then we will reach peace. So Michal says, hey, you're calling peace, you're calling peace, you're calling peace. We just talked about this. Hamas is going to get what they want, or they're not going to go for peace. And here we go. Withdraw from the settlements from the West Bank without any settlements. We want Jerusalem as our capital, and we want our refugees returned. And he also said in this statement, and I want to relate this to Bible prophecy, because this could very well be a fulfillment of Bible prophecy here if Hamas continues their aggression against Israel and not only Gaza, but the West Bank. Michelle said that Hamas has the conviction necessary to expel the Israelis from the West Bank and Gaza by force. And when I saw that, I immediately, Anthony, thought of Matthew 24, verse 15. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Now, this is not time yet, but I wanted to reiterate that this is or could go into a fulfillment of Bible prophecy, because Michelle is saying that, hey, we will, as Hamas, we will expel the Israelis from not only Gaza, but from the West Bank, and we will do it by force if necessary. And so here, let's go on with the scripture. Let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let them which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be. And now, the reason I bring this up is because could this statement by Michelle actually be a hint that this conflict is not going to be resolved until the abomination of desolation and after, until the Battle of Armageddon, basically?
Well, I would tend to agree with that because if you consider what's happened recently with Shimon Peres stepping down, and now we have Ruby, as they like to call him, who's now the president, he is very much in favor of Israeli settlements in the West Bank. He does not want to freeze the building over there. He does not want to pull out. He wants to increase the settlements over there. So, obviously, that would make sense as to why those in Judea, those in the West Bank, will have to flee. They're obviously going to be there. So, apparently, there is no resolution of that issue until the abomination of desolation. And it even appears then that there's still not a resolution. It's almost there's just going to be an outbreak. It's just going to go crazy at this point. So it's going to be very interesting to watch that. And it's very funny after covering what we did yesterday, the letter from the Muslim in Canada, right, dealing with it's their right to live in the land, and we can live there too. And he kind of explained from both the side of the Quran and from the Bible how things should work out. And there's just no one who really agrees with that. Unfortunately, on the Hamas side, as we discussed earlier, their end game is the destruction of Israel, and that's what they want. And ultimately, it's probably going to get to that place, and that is probably what we are seeing now, this framework, this setup for what we will know as the Battle of Armageddon. That's where we're approaching. So stick with us. We'll be right back. You're listening to Politics and Religion.